Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche Pregame Show presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Use code DNVR when you sign up for a new account to get amazing odds boosts every single day. Jesse, Rudolph, Megan coming to you live as the Avs take on the Buffalo Sabres to end the month of November, at least for the Avalanche schedule.
I think that happened yesterday.
Did it?
Yeah.
Is it December 1st?
Yep.
Ah, shit. I thought it was the 30th.
That was yesterday.
God damn. All right. I knew yesterday's game was in November, and I was like, it's fine. Most of this road trip is in December.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I thought it was still November.
If it helps, I also last night was thinking that November had 31 days, and I woke up this morning and I was like, huh, look at that.
Should have checked my phone, I guess.
Yeah. Well, see, but my other issue is I can never remember if New Year's Eve is on the 30th or 31st. So, like, that doesn't do me any good.
I feel like that one you should know.
What's funny is, well, I just know it's the last day of the year. I don't remember if it's 31 or 30.
You don't do the, like, knuckle trick?
Well, see, for the end of the year, what and I'm kicking myself for not doing this yesterday, Halloween. I know Halloween is on the 31st.
November's the 30th.
Right.
December's the 31st.
Right.
But then January has 31 days, too, so...
Yeah, is it? Yeah.
Anyway.
Isn't that, like, that's the...
Yeah, it's the knuckles.
That's the bumping together,
Yep.
right? Yeah.
Well, I think it's the end, actually.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah. From this one
Avs
to
do
this
play a game today, so maybe we should talk about that.
I love how this podcast has basically just so far been us figuring out our months the way that second graders do.
Yeah, I don't know that knuckle trick.
Really?
No.
Oh, yeah.
I only know one knuckle trick.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. every knuckle is 31 days. So it's January, February, March, April, May, June, July. And then the space in between, I believe, is August.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know the whole trick.
No. August, September, October, November, December.
And then you go back to the
and
start.
then you start over with the first knuckle.
Yeah, there you go.
See? School.
Greg with a probably much better way to figure this out. But anyway, doesn't matter what month it is. The Avs are looking for a win. Buffalo... How do we feel about Buffalo? Let's start here, because they started the season extremely hot, then cooled off quite a bit at the start of November, and have kind of found a middle ground there now. Do we think they're genuinely contending for the playoffs, or is it still too soon for these guys?
For Buffalo?
Yeah.
I'll just say I don't think they're contending. I think they're having that season kind of like what the Avs had. Now, coincidentally, the Avs made it to the playoffs
in the
that
last
year in
game of the
82.
Year, yeah.
But I think Buffalo's kind of having that year where they're finally learning some things about themselves. And it was one of the reasons why I thought they were such a fun, exciting team at the end of the year last year was because for the first time in a decade, they looked like they had a sense of direction. We see teams like that. It was the Avs for a long time, right? For close to a decade, it was the Avs that it looks like you're just kind of throwing players out on the ice, and that to me is what Buffalo had been doing for so long. Where it was, we have Jack Eichel, and we signed Jeff Skinner and all stuff. It's like cool, but like to what? Like what's the scheme here? What's the group? What's the direction you're heading? Where are you investing your assets, whatever. And last year, after they moved on from Eichel, and that first game they played against Eichel, that game seemed to set a tone for them and change the way that the organization looked at itself. You had a guy like Alex Tuck, who was very outwardly, very pro playing in Buffalo, being in Buffalo. You had guys like Peyton Krebs, who, again, were excited to be there, excited for the opportunity. And you just seem like you've got a core there who has attached themselves to it and said, kind of in the way that the Avs had to have that moment at saying, hey, this is our team. Like, we are now the direction of this team. We're the core, we're the heartbeat, we're the whatever, and we own it. And that has led them to being able to start working towards actual success. So I think that's what you're seeing out of them this season is a team that is finally working in that direction. But when you step back and look at this roster top to bottom, while they have some really fun, really exciting pieces at the top, the depth just isn't there, and the goaltending is
very suspect
on the team.
I think the goaltending is what holds me back from believing that this is the year that they take that step forward in terms of playoffs. But the pieces that Jesse talks about, I do think are fun pieces that are beginning to click, because a lot of what they're building around is a young core like an Owen Power, who I really do believe in. Honestly, their D-core too, with Dahlin there as well, is impressive. And then Tage Thompson having the year that he's having, though not necessarily the youngest of players, it does feel like he's at a stage in his career where he's taking a big step forward.
Yep.
I think it's fun to see the pieces beginning to click for them, and I'm hopeful for what it means in the coming seasons, but I'm not sure this season is the one, and I go back to goaltending and not being sure what to make of it. At one point, we weren't even sure if Craig Anderson was real, so I just don't know how to feel.
Well, so Megan, I like that you called out Dahlin and Power, because that's a really exciting top pairing. And you think back to the Cale Makar draft, and for me, that whole season, that was the year that Patrick Wall leaves 2 weeks before training camp. Joe Sakic kind of takes over full control of personnel decisions, and the team kind of changed the direction of who they wanted on the roster, what kind of players they wanted to pursue, and a lot of that started with a huge commitment to defense. Right, we are going to go all in on making our D-core and our team defense a priority. And again, they had to set a direction, and it's fun when you look at the Buffalo roster, because it looks like they are starting to say, we got to prioritize these types of guys. We have this, we have these players in place. How can we build around them? And not just, like we said a minute ago, throwing whoever out there. So I just wanted to double back, because when you call out the top pairing of Power and Dahlin, it does remind you a little bit of when the Avs kind of started building to where they are now by saying, we have to prioritize our defense. We have to get some talent back there, and we can't just be filling this out with bargain bin defensemen every year who have experience.
Well, it's not just that. It's also you're finally seeing, you mentioned Tage Thompson take the next step. Rasmus Dahlin has always been a very good defenseman for Buffalo, but this is the first year where it really feels like he's becoming the superstar everyone thought he was going to be.
Yeah.
And obviously near the top of the scoring list for defensemen, and is just an absolute monster on both ends of the ice for these guys. How do you compare Dahlin to Cale Makar?
So I remember making reading a tweet. I had sent some tweet when Makar was coming into the league about him and Dahlin. And I had all these Buffalo fans like, oh, look, he looked good in college. Let's not get carried away. Dahlin's, the next elite generational defenseman, and Cale Makar kind of blew right past him, right? And I think for a lot of people, I don't necessarily want to say took the attention off of Dahlin, but it was just kind of like that guy over there is what we thought this guy would be doing already. Let's go watch him. And Dahlin, I think, was just one of those examples where he's from Earth. He's not like Cale Makar. And as it does with most people from Earth, it takes even defensemen that end up being top tier elite defensemen, it takes them a couple of years to settle into that role, to understand the speed, understand the gapping and when to be physical and when to play your angles, play your gaps, use your stick. When to jump into passing lanes, when to pinch, whatever. And it looks like Dahlin is finally putting together all those tools that we saw for years, the skating, the hands, all of that. And he's putting it together with, the NHL speed and the size and all of that stuff. And it's really fun to watch. To me, these are still two very different players. I put Dahlin in there with a Victor Hedman type.
Miro Heiskanen kind of.
Yep. Where, look, at the end of the day, it's not that those aren't elite all-world defensemen that are, in the same category as Cale Makar in terms of elite all-world defensemen. But was it Pete DeBoer the other day? Put it the best. There is no one else like Cale Makar in the league right now. There just isn't. You can be a very, 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 very good defenseman. You can be an elite defenseman. Victor Hedman is an unbelievable player. He's not Cale Makar. He just doesn't do the things that Cale Makar does.
Yep.
So while I think Dahlin it's really fun to finally see him be the player that we all, or start to be the player we all thought he could be. Yeah, he's Rasmus Dahlin. He's not Cale Makar.
I think it's a tough comparison to make too, for a couple reasons. Outside of who they are as players, in a pre-Makar era of Avs defense, I actually felt they were ill-equipped to develop young defensemen because they had a little bit of an identity crisis in how they wanted to execute defensively. And I think the emergence of Makar coming to the team has helped them to build around him and the identity of how they'd like to execute defensively. Yep. And I look at Buffalo as a team that's in the beginning stages of this, and they're likely learning how to build around developing a player like Dahlin. And so I look at it like the bloom where you're planted kind of thing. That's what happened with Makar here, and the Avs were in a position to do that. But with Buffalo, I have long wondered if when Dahlin entered the league, if they were in a position to allow a player like that to bloom where he's planted out the gate, or if he needed a couple years and the team needed to recognize how to build around a player like Dahlin specifically, with respect to Buffalo and their systems, which I don't know as intimately. But that's something that I think the Avs at one point struggled with in defensemen that came before Makar. And so for Buffalo, I have to imagine it's a similar reason why these two have had really different paths just at the start of their NHL careers. But they're also just really different people and players, so that's something to take into account too. But Dahlin's an excellent player.
Well, and it's you make a phenomenal point, Megan, about the way that the Avs run everything through Cale Makar. So go back a little bit before that to Tyson Barrie, right? And
yes.
They used him in a way that not a lot, like there weren't a lot of teams that had a guy that was doing what Tyson Barrie was doing for the Avs at the time. And it wasn't that there weren't players that were as good as Tyson Barrie. It was just the Avs were utilizing him in a very specific way. And more specifically, Jared Bednar was saying, hey, look, we're going to lean into our strengths here. We have this guy who can move the puck up ice. He can shoot. He can distribute. Let's lean into that. Well, then they got Cale Makar, and they basically said, we're not only going to lean into that, we're going to run everything through that. And we're going to, we have these now other players, Sam Girard at the time, Eric Johnson to a lesser extent. We have these other players that we can do similar. We can run everything through them the way that we do with Cale Makar. And oh, by the way, it doesn't help to have all these superstars up front that are lightning fast. But then, like you're kind of alluding to, Megan, then they went out and they said, cool, well, how do we do that? How do we run everything? How do we build around them? You go out and you add Devon Taves. You take Bowen Byram when he falls to you at the draft. You don't reach for somewhere because you have enough defensemen. They had Connor Timmins, and he obviously ends up getting moved in a trade, but same idea, right? And that's what's been interesting to see Buffalo do, and part of the reason why I think that they felt comfortable throwing Owen Power onto that top pair with Dahlin right away is because we think these two guys can be kind of the crux of what we want to do and build outward from there. The Avs talked a lot in the last several years about the Avs talked a lot about Tampa Bay and the way that they did things and the way that they built their roster and the way that they played and the way that they competed. Everyone who watched the ESPN YouTube thing after the playoffs heard what Jared Bednar said to John Cooper in the line. You guys have been our inspiration. We've taken our cues from you guys. We watching what you guys have done. It's been amazing. We admire you guys. And you now see it, especially with the way that the Avs ran through the playoffs. Blues fans can say whatever they want to help themselves get all cuddly at night, but the Avs dominated that
Should've
entire
won that series in 5.
playoff run.
Did
right.
win it in 6.
right. And it's the Avs, that was a dominant postseason performance.
Yep.
Against all different kinds of teams that tried to check them, teams that tried to skate with them, teams that tried to outscore them, and the Avs just kind of ran through them. And I think you now have teams around the league who are in the position like Buffalo, Ottawa, Detroit, Arizona, that are now looking at the Avs as their inspiration and saying, okay, well, how do we build that? How do we do that? And it starts with Dahlin.
It's a great lead-in to the Avs November. it might not be your traditional sense of like a team that you're inspiring to be after because you're expecting a team to win in a crazy amount of games. But as we've talked about many times, the Avs roster has been a complete mess for all of November. They entered November 4-4-1. They exited November 12-7-1. So they went 8-3 in the month of November with the roster that they have.
It's a team that knows who the fuck they are, man.
Yep. It's just, I think at times people get a little bit too caught up in, how the Avs look when they're not playing their best, which they're certainly not because they don't have those players in their lineup.
Right.
But they're finding ways to win hockey games. And they've set themselves up great for when they do start to get players back.
Yep.
So I guess my question is, can you expect more from Colorado going into December here, as they should get a piece or two back, but probably not the bigger guys until certainly the back half of the month? Or is it going to be more of the same?
It's, where I expect more is from a different area, and I think it's to alleviate some pressure off of what they've been able to do with special teams. Honestly, a lot of the power play doing the heavy lifting and generating offense. And so where I'd expect them to get better is to score a little more 5-on-5 and a little more depth scoring once the depth starts to resemble something consistently, because I do not fault them for having to score where they could at this point because of how flexible this roster has been. So I don't blame them, but I see that improving in December, and I don't think it should take away what they've done in November, though.
I expect the quality of team play to remain fairly consistent, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Where I think you hope, right, that you'll see a change is what Megan's saying once you get some of those guys back. As long as the overall quality of how you're playing stays about the same, you start adding that talent
Wherever
back
it
in.
comes from is
right,
fine.
Right.
Yes.
And if you can start evenly distributing it a little bit more, take some of the pressure off of your special teams. You still want them to be good every night, but you don't absolutely have to have them being tops in the league every night to get a win. I think you should hopefully start to see that win column fill up even more. But I think what they've done in November is very just a great example. It's very representative of everything that we were just talking about, starting with what Megan was saying about the way that this team understands its identity and runs things through Cale Makar and just its defense in general, the way that they work, just everything about the way this team has been built. And I know we joke sometimes because I think people get carried away with the cliche of like championship team and they know how to win and all that stuff, experience. But like this is a team that understands, hey, look, it doesn't matter who's in and who's out. Like the level of play from us as individuals is expected to be the same on any given night. And that's what they're bringing right now because they know that's what it takes to get to the end of the season, or the end of the playoffs.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Congrats on the job, by the way, Joey.
Yeah, Joey,
Woo-hoo.
great
Hopefully
news.
the bar is open next time you try to come down. That would be cool.
Oh, no.
I wanted to wrap this up with, I say a lot on the show and elsewhere, good teams don't go on losing streaks. The Avs did not lose 2 games in a row in November. Tonight, they face Buffalo to not lose 2 in a row to start off December. If they win tonight, the trend continues. We know the Avs are a good team when they're healthy. So far, they're proving they're a good team with half an AHL lineup. Mm-hmm. So I guess that makes them a great team when they're healthy, really. Got some bets for you here. I'm assuming Blaze didn't send in any?
You think he's going to do his job?
Have one. My dad, Papa Rudo, recommending Mikko Rantanen first goal scorer at plus 850. We were talking before the show. The over is even money at 6.5 goals, which I know is high, but some of us are expecting quite a few goals tonight.
Say against Buffalo, I feel like this could be a
10-goaler.
I took the under.
Megan's
I didn't actually place a bet. I still to this day have never placed a bet. But
what a plug! What a plug right there for for
All right.
DraftKings.
Well, who do you have as first goal, Megan? Because last time we did this, it worked out.
I had Cale Makar because of how the game ended in Winnipeg. The puck goes in off his own stick. He's defeated. They get shut out, and he had some good chances. I think he's going to come out the gates pretty upset about that.
Fired up a little bit.
Yeah.
Alex Galchenyuk is plus 290 for a goal.
Fun.
And, wow, no love for your boy, Megan.
Foodie?
Yeah, there's not even odds
Not
on him. Nope, doesn't even have odds.
They said,
Called him Dahlin Duty.
I saw that. Ron Weasley.
Do you guys know what JJ Paterka, do you know what the JJ stands for?
I don't.
John Jason?
Yeah, wow, I'm very impressed. John
Nailed
Jason.
it.
John Jacob Jingleheimer.
That's what I thought. If you're gonna do John hyphen another J name, there's no way not everyone's gonna go to John Jacob Jingleheimer Smith.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Go place your bets over at DraftKings Sportsbook. We are going to wrap up this pregame show. Got a watch along coming to you, so be sure to tune into that. You guys know the drill. Like and subscribe. Help us out here on YouTube.
Wyatt Amat
Yeah, I know. He's been on there like the whole
plus
season.
1,300.
Yeah.
King.
It should count if you make that bet and he scores in the AHL. We have post-game coming afterward as well, so no matter what, be sure to tune into that. We appreciate y'all, and we will talk to you soon.